Harlescott Grange Junior School has around 400 children in 10 unstreamed classes. It is situated on a rapidly expanding council housing estate on the industrial northern fringe of Shrewsbury. The schools provide almost the only public amenity in a large area of new development. Harlescott Grange Junior School tries to make all its work as child-centred as possible, and the direct environmental approach seen in this film indicates the spirit in which all work is approached. In this film, we are attempting to show children using the environment for study and the ways in which they communicate their experiences and their findings. This class of fourth-year children has studied Pontisford Hill, 7 miles west of Shrewsbury. Here are some of the visible results of the work on the hill. The children have built these up as the study has gone on. A great deal of thought and discussion has gone into finding the most telling means of presenting their studies. In this way, an individual and meaningful classroom environment is built up. For convenience, the class works in cooperative groups, although there is much individual and partner work. Here is one group setting out for the hill. We shall see children working out of doors and learning directly about the environment, and subsequently making various kinds of statements about their findings. These children are working with experienced teachers and are themselves experienced in field work. They are therefore able to select their own material for study and are free to do so. Less experienced teachers and children may initially need the guidance and confidence which work cards or assignment sheets can give.
This huge sweet chestnut is an obvious object of interest for the children. Diane takes a spray of leaves to examine more closely. She tracks down the tree in her reference book and makes a quick entry in her field notebook. Training in the use of first-class reference books is an important aspect of this work. A portable tape recorder can be used to record impressions on the spot, as well as the sounds of birds and other creatures. If children are to work out of doors, some equipment is useful. Preliminary expeditions to the hill have already given children ideas about what they want to do, and most of the children have selected interests they want to follow as far as they can. A magnificent specimen of a Wellingtonia. Mathematics comes into this work. Susan and Mark are all set up to measure the height of this Wellingtonia tree. Pamela and Paul have read about Wellingtonias and Goldcrests and hope today to make a plaster cast of this tiny bird's roosting hole. A mould is made with raw clay by hammering it into the bark and roosting hole of the goldcrest. One of the most exciting and most graphic methods of recording information is by making clay moulds of various parts of the tree. On peeling away the clay, the children are thrilled with the texture of the fibrous bark and the deep cavity of the hole. Notice how instinctively they feel the surfaces. There is an endless variety of interests to be found on Pontersford Hill. Robin has been attracted by the various colours in the rocks. The hill is of volcanic origin and is a source of great interest to adults as well as to junior geologists. Magnifying glasses in the field and microscopes in the classroom reveal a new world for children to explore. Group discussions play a major part in this work. Above all, children need an opportunity to talk out experiences they've had in the field, for this will clarify their thinking, help them to become articulate, and ensure that they get the maximum benefit from their experiences. This is a well-known technique for studying plant populations. The information will later be displayed in graphical form in the classroom. Susan is pressing grasses in the field, ready to take back to the classroom. David is studying the structure of hawkweed flowers and is already speaking of hawkweed 1 and hawkweed 2 in quite a professional way. The teacher's role is often a listening one. This kind of work affords many opportunities for getting very close to the children. Work in the field, camping, travelling together in small groups, all mean that the teacher gets to know individual children more intimately than is ever possible in the ordinary classroom. At last the top has been reached, a strenuous climb of over 1,000 feet, and this itself is quite an experience for the children. Work in the field will go on at several levels at the same time. The work always begins with simple looking. In any class, some children will not go far beyond this stage of careful observation. Some children are able to look in quite a refined way and to classify their results. Others go much further and are able to see problems raised by the environment and know what to do about the solution of these. This is the beginning of hypothesis and experiment. It is the beginning of science. Here, Susan is using her Write As You See and Hear notebook. Fieldwork gives children many opportunities for writing directly about their experiences out of doors. These two girls want to know why there are so many dead bees on the hill. And this leads to a whole study of bees. The field sketch pad is always important. David is fascinated by the shapes of the larch trees. Following a previous visit, another David wrote an extravagant fantasy after experiencing a thunderstorm among these larch trees. This concerned the yearly struggle between the destroying and wrathful forces of winter, personified by Lord Khan, and the white certainty of resurgent spring in the shape of Spen. These ideas were also later developed in movement and demonstrate the stimulation of emotional response which this work can engender. Mountaineering. One must be prepared for anything. A plant that is different demands attention. This boy will later show us his wall pennywort in tissue paper form. This sort of detailed examination is typical of the way in which juniors work. Ian is examining owl pellets. At the foot of Pontersford Hill runs the Haberley Brook. Here, as everywhere else on the hill, children collect a rich variety of material on which to base work in the classroom, although these experiences are extremely valuable in their own right.
Peter, Ian and myself are picking up stones and asking Joy and Elaine if they have the same stones on their side of the bank. Joy and Elaine are examining the stones and giving us the answer. They say yes, they have got the stones. Then we decided to do an experiment. We picked up a stick and I put it in the river. It floated over to Joy and Elaine's side and they said that it has arrived. Then they put it back in the water and they told us that it was floating over to the other side. It then floated over to the other side of the bank and disappeared out around the corner. This proves that stones, twigs and mud will come out of different banks and then float over to the other side, deposit on the bank and then go across to another bank and carry on its work and cause curves and meanders.
Jacqueline has made a whole study of erosion. John sketches the outline of the stream's meander. No one notices the newcomer. Water creatures are a never-failing source of interest for juniors. Children are excited by them because they move, they can be observed at close quarters, they can be examined under the magnifying glass and the microscope, and they can be taken back to school and put in aquaria for closer observation. The scree is another source of interest. Peter's drawing rock shapes. A group of children are fascinated to find spiders running over the rocks. This is the kind of incident which often leads children to make quite long studies. And always we think that the study and the way it is made is more important than knowledge about spiders. This is a rare stone crop. Children are readily appreciative of the need to protect the natural treasures and resources of the countryside. Two girls study plants growing on ant hills. One of the main purposes of this kind of work is to help children to think and ask questions. Marina wants to know why there are two different kinds of ant in this particular colony. She went on to make a long and detailed study. Later, you'll see part of the prodigious amount of writing which Marina did about her ants.
An environmental study, such as this study of Pontisford Hill, leads naturally to integrated work. English, mathematics, history, art, craft, science all play their part. Children of primary age are not concerned about subject labels. They are concerned about finding out about and understanding the world in which they live.
Back in the classroom, the children record the results of their studies in a variety of ways. As we said earlier, they will need plenty of opportunity to talk out their experiences. The natural sequence to this talking is written work of all kinds, as well as the use of a wide variety of media from art and craft. All this expressive work will call for further work and study. The spray of sweet chestnut leaves is transferred to lino. Notice the care and skill with which the materials and tools are handled. Work on trees is going on at many levels and builds up to an interesting section. Robin is making a very bold and very personal representation of the Wellingtonia. Some children choose needlework. Pamela completes the cast of the Wellingtonia bark. Juniors enjoy using clay on this scale. Filling the cast with plaster of Paris is always a very exciting but a very anxious moment. The hill forms a natural vantage point for the study of the Shropshire landscape. This is another illustration of how this kind of work integrates the resources of many subjects. Ian studies his owl pellets in the classroom, sorting out bones of similar shape and size. Note the care with which he handles these fragile fragments. If a wide enough range of materials is available, every child will find a satisfying means of expression. Through experience, he will learn to assess the suitability of material for his purposes. David has chosen tissue paper to make his wall pennyworth, having rejected paint, pen and ink, and scraper board. Lino cuts are a very popular and satisfying medium. Each child will express himself in a variety of media.
We were walking along the top and we started following a line of bees, dead bees, and we found it very interesting and we decided to do a study on bees.
Beverly and Corinne are working on their quadrats, transferring data about plant population from their field notebooks to graphs for the wall display. Mark and Susan complete their work on the height of the Wellingtonia.
Most of the creatures we found in running water are smaller than the ones we found in still water. The creatures we found in running water seem to be more peculiar than those we found in still water. They seem to have more hairy legs. The creatures we found in running water were mostly in shallower water than those we found in still water. The creatures we found in still water were in the water or on the water, and we just dipped the sieve in and caught them. The creatures we found in running water were all under the stones in the bottom of the stream, and we had to lift up the stones to find them. The Belgae and the Brythons had chariots, and these chariots were open at the front, and they had two horns at the back to help the rider up. The huts were usually round and held one family. There seemed to be very few stones on top of Ponsford Hill, so they most likely make them out of wickerwork. Now, a living example of these huts is found in some tribes in Africa.
The long-awaited moment has arrived. The plaster is set and the clay mould is taken away. A proud moment for Pamela and Paul.
If you go to the roosting hole of the Goldcrest at night, you can see it roosting there. Mr. Aston stepped back a bit, and he thought he could make out two eyes shining, but he wasn't sure. Then, to prove that it was a Goldcrest, the wind ruffled some feathers on its head. We were very excited, and when we stepped back, we too could see the little eyes shining like diamonds. When I was watching it, I thought to myself, the Goldcrest must be small to roost in a hole that big. One day I was looking in the ant colony and I saw some black ants. Well, there were also red ants in this colony, but I noticed that the black ants were carrying the cocoons. I have several theories about this. The black ants could be slaves to the red ants, or when the queen ant made her maiden flight, she could have mated with a black ant.
What else did you find in the ant?
Well, we found that the ants kept pets, such as cows, and they milked the cows by stroking them with their antennae.
The work of these children indicates that given certain educational conditions, children are capable of going much further in their studies than we thought possible even a few years ago. We have tried to show how individual children, when interested, can pursue quite a small area of study in depth, sustaining their interest over a long period of time. This kind of work fosters a close personal relationship of trust between the teacher and child, which encourages both good intellectual and emotional development.